Uno mas.
Moss. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great morning. I've been up since the crack of early. Like, it was still dark. Even the bears hadn't gotten up yet. Um, I got up and just simply couldn't sleep. So I decided instead of disturbing my husband, leave the poor man sleep, I went downstairs and for whatever reason, I just couldn't seem to sit still. So I made myself a cup of tea and then I got to work. And it's been a very busy but very productive morning thus far. And then about an hour ago, I sat down and I was going through emails and questions in reference to today. Things I always look for questions that people have. And so I'm going to cover a couple of questions that I had asked this week that I think are really important. So we're going to cover that. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about the giveaways for today. We've got something a little special for you today. We have something courtesy of DecoArt, and we have something courtesy of Tombow, and we have a bag full of goodies, a little Create bag from Renee and I. So we got a really nice little giveaway for today. I believe its retail value is hovering somewhere around $35, which is a nice little gift. And we have 3 of those to give away today. So in order to get your name on the wheel, all you got to do is hit the share button or the subscribe button or the like button or just hit all the buttons. And at the end of the live, we collect all those names and put them onto the wheel. And 3 of you are going to get one of those giveaways. So we've got a busy day ahead of us. Today we're painting vintage hot chocolate. I really love this piece. Not so much for the cup, although I really think it's cute. My favorite is the lettering. I love the lettering in this. It has a really nice vintage vibe to it. So it's a lot of fun. And then, of course, it's got a ton of glitter and some snowflakes.
Touched it. Oh, it's on my hand.
And now he's full of glitter. I didn't warn him ahead of time.
Started picking it up the second you mentioned glitter.
He's going to be scrubbing his hands for hours. And it's the super sparkly stuff.
I see that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, if you guys are ready to get started on today's project, vintage hot chocolate, so am I.
You're not going to cover those questions you tried?
I am, but I need the down shot to do that.
You have the button.
I have the buttons. You know, you're better at pushing them. Experience. So I had a really great question this week, and it came from Karen Wilson from Meaford, Ontario. She had a really great question about Posca pens. I use these quite a bit. I really enjoy working with these. And you may have noticed some of them come in, more North American style packaging, and then you get packaging like this one, which is, completely Japanese. And, the bulk of their packaging is part English, and then the rest of it is Japanese. There's actually very little English, except for maybe the sticker that they put over top that actually has English. When you do find one that has English, there's variance in how they're packaged. Some will be referred to as pens, others referred to as pencils, and some referred to as markers. So a lot of that is simply, something that kind of got lost in translation. But I do want to show you that there is a difference between these pens. So you'll notice on the package of the pens, they have an item number up here, which is actually a style number. So we have PC3M. These ones I really like. These ones are like a jumbo Sharpie. I really like them. They have a really nice bullet point. I'm going to pull this up to the camera so you can see. Just like that. And I'm going to grab some tweezers because I want to show you something. Of course, I dropped my tweezers. So the nice thing about these is that point can be removed, and it's the same on both ends. So if one end gets a little blunt or gets rounded or flattened out, you can literally pull it out with a pair of tweezers and put it back in. Makes that super easy. These are what we would refer to as Posca markers, or that's how they're described, as a marker. And then there's these ones. This one here actually has a size down in the corner. It's 0.07. But then again, this is also a 0.07. Let me show you on this one. I'm going to grab the same pink one that I had before. So here is, this one here has the item number PC1M, and it's a 0.07, so it's got a finer point. It's similar, but not a bullet point. This one actually comes to a very fine point, and it's a little firmer. It doesn't have the same feel. It's a different material than these ones. And again, these can be removed, but again, they have a slightly different edge. These can be replaced, as can the other ones, but these ones do not turn around. There's only one way for these to go in. But these ones are also firmer. They have made out of an entirely different material. So that's that one. And then we come to this one, and I love these. These, again, are the same point size as these larger ones. This one has more of a pen. This one is more like a ultra fine tip marker. Tip cannot be replaced. And these ones are not refillable. So you would have to actually get a replacement one for these. These ones are fantastic. They have that super fine point. Just, this is a pin type, so it has a very fine tip on it. As far as I know, you cannot remove that piece. So this one works very much like most paint pens. You have to pump them up and down to get them primed. Once you've got them primed, you can use them. Now, the one thing that all of these Posca pens have in common, aside from the beautiful pigmentation and the amazing array of colors, is how to store them. Now, Posca actually recommends that they are stored point up or horizontally, but not point down. So if you have, as in this case, Posca actually does their packaging so that it can be used as a storage container. So you can keep this right on your desktop. It's a nice little packaging. This one, these lovely little pocket ones, again, they stand out quite nicely if you've got a nice little storage rack, or they can be stored horizontally. So they actually have taken their product into consideration when it came to their packaging. Absolutely love it. So now I'm going to show you something really, really cool that I thought was so fantastic. What happens when one of my paint pens dries out? Let me show you. I thought this was the neatest thing when I learned how to do this. So if you find that your marker, your point is drying out, remove it. Drop it into lukewarm water, clean lukewarm water. Rinse it out, leave it there for a few minutes, take it out, put it back into your pen. Make sure the lid's on nice and tight. Give it a good shake, prime the pen, and it should work exactly as if it was a brand new pen. I've done it to my white ones because I use these ones all the time, and it works like a charm. All you have to do is take that point out, give it a good soak in clean water, blot it so that you're not putting water back in, put it back into your pen, and you're good to go. Super easy product to maintain. Really, really good paint pen. I haven't found a better one yet. And the other great thing is that these are also available in smaller sets. They're available in huge sets. They're also available individually. So right now on Amazon, you can get a set of the white ones in all sizes for about $25. So you can get a set in every single size. And I believe it's 6 pens, 6 or 7 pens. These are absolutely fantastic. Lucy, no, these are all water-based pens. All of the Posca pens are acrylic and water-based. Look how clean my container is. I had to sandblast it this morning. That was another thing I did today. So, Karen, I hope that this has helped answer your question. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to send me an email if you'd like me to answer them during a live. I'm more than happy to. So, I'm going to put my Posca pens aside because I'm going to be using them a little later on. This is the piece that we're going to do today. I am a sucker for anything vintage, anything old, you know. I love it. I love old country style stuff, old signs, old advertising, art, things like that really appeal to me. There's just something about that distressed look that just appeals. And then I'm going to show you a really fun technique for putting glitter on. Do you see all the glitter on this piece? I just love how this looks. It's so sparkly, but it doesn't interfere with the design. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with glitter today. We're going to do some fun things with lettering, and I'm going to show you a fun technique for doing this background because I really love this. And of course, we're always going to have a little bit of fun and a few laughs. So this is the piece we're working on today. Now, when I did this pattern, I designed it for this little squat tag, which is a 6x10 or 6x8, 6x8, sorry. So 6x8 piece, the little squatty tag. We did it as a set, so it'll come with all of the little snowflakes on it, and it comes with the stand. What is the font? Off the top of my head, I can't remember for the life of me, but I will find out. I think it's called Ice Cream Parlor, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's called Ice Cream Parlor. I just love it. I think it's just fun font. Susan, how long do you soak the tip to restore it? Just a few minutes, and then blot it before you put it back in. So we're going to have some fun with this one. Now, when I designed this one, I also did it so that it could be done on one of the rustic signs. So nothing changes. Everything remains exactly the same except for the composition. And I have done a line drawing for this, and it's also available in the pattern. So this is the one that I'm going to do today. I'm going to do it on this. The technique, stenciling, painting, everything is exactly the same. How do I get the font? I include the fonts, the lettering obviously is in the pattern. The fonts you can purchase through a variety of different websites. You can purchase the license for them. I believe this one is called Ice Cream Parlor. I just really like it. I think it's a fun one. You see this one quite a lot actually in vintage signage, or a variation of it anyway. So it's a fun one. One of the other things I was going to talk to you about today was sanding discs. You guys often see me using those little white ovals for sanding. They're very difficult to get, and mine have just about had the biscuit. So I have been trying to hunt them down, so to speak. And they are quite simply unavailable. I have not been able to find them anywhere. So this is what I did come up with. I simply searched the grit, and I found this, which I think was so cool. I found these in a nail salon place. This is actually a buffing file for your nails. And it turns out it's exactly the same grit as the sanding disc that I'm using. So I purchased a bunch. And when I say a bunch, I purchased a package, and there's like 50 of them in there. So they were not expensive, and they work really, really well. So that is what I'm going to be using. So for this one, I have one coat of Tuscan red on this background. Oh, so smooth. So that is our base color, is Tuscan red. I've got one coat on. I gave it a light sanding just to give it a nice smooth finish. I also found these little ones too. Seam finish. These are great. So I've started tucking one of these little devils into the giveaways because they're really, really handy, especially for sanding small things, ornament edges and stuff like that. These are fantastic. This one is 240 and 120. That's the grit. And you can find them on Amazon. Crystal Hendricks, hello, sweetie. So glad to have you join us. Robin R. Do I think they would work for sanding off Mod Podge papers? Oh, they do work for that. Absolutely. I use them all the time. I know. I tried. I got some in purple. Same problem. I kept thinking eraser because it's sort of a lighter violet. But yes. So this is the surface we're working on. First color we're going to work with is soft black. I love this color, especially working on reds. I want to keep that warm vintage tone to this. Of course, I did my nails this morning too, so I am going to mess up my manicure. Okay, that's how I roll. They're going to get messed up at some point anyway. It might as well do it right away. Get it out of the way. So I'm going to make myself a high-tech applicator with a little bit of shop towel. And I just got a nice little pillow like that. Yeah, I was a busy girl this morning. I was a very busy girl this morning. So I'm going to start with a little bit of soft black on my high-tech applicator. Now, you want this to be wet, but not dripping. And you can use either water or glaze. Either one will work. It's the time of year, Liz. My daughter and I went out and harvested all the herbs and picked all of the peppermint and whatnot yesterday. So we were drying the peppermint for tea. And for other things, obviously, but, and then I dried at least a couple of pounds of basil. And, it's been busy. So I'm just putting a nice dark border around the outside edge of this sign. Comme ça. Everybody's there. Hi, Ann.
They need sandpaper. You had sandpaper? Oh.
Sanding disc.
Did you get that?
They're just Amazon.
Amazon.
In a nail place. Hey, it works, you know?
Oh, so it's like a memory board?
Yeah. But it's a 120 and 220 or 210 something grit. Like super fine on both sides. Like a finishing. And they do. They work really well. So I'm putting a nice dark edge all the way around. I want to keep the center of this a little lighter. Oh, somebody heard your footsteps coming down the stairs. The clunk, clunk, clunk of him coming down the stairs. There we are. I want this a little lighter towards the center, so I'm keeping the darker values of the color towards the outside edge and keeping it softer towards the center. Deb shaves her mustache every day. Yep. That's good to know, Deb. Years ago, instead of shaving my legs, I had them sugared. So I don't have to shave my legs anymore. I have to shave my chin, but not my legs. Renee's cringing. TMI. TMI. There we go. So I've got nice dark edge along the outside, little lighter towards the center. This is just going to give our lettering and that teacup a nice contrast. So I'm going to dry that real quick. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Judy. Hi, Patricia. Welcome. We have a lot of folks joining the chat that names I haven't seen before. Hi, Bobby. Hopefully it's sunny in Georgia. The wonders of getting older. Oh, yes. Like not being able to sleep all night. That's the one. That's a good one. So I've got a nice little bit of soft black. I love that sort of rustic distress thing. And then I'm going to use a little bit of asphaltum. I'm going to grab my big angled shader for this. And lots of water. And I'm going to thin out some asphaltum because I want to tone this. I want everything to sort of have that same warm tone. So I'm going to put a wash of heavily thinned asphaltum over everything. And it is just a wash. Don't worry about accuracy, or doesn't matter if it's even. None of that really matters at this point. There we are. There. So I've got a nice thin layer of asphaltum over everything. Tart cherry juice. Oh, I want to say hi to Mary. And I want to say hi to Carl. I know he's feeling a little under the weather today, so hello, Carl. There we go. So there we are. So we still have that glow in the middle. Nice dark outline out here. So I want to give this edge a nice sharp shadow at the edge. So I'm going to use a little bit of soft black. Doesn't have to be much. And I'm going to use that big angled shader again. And we're going to pick up a small amount of lamp black. And we're going to put a float of that all around the outside edge. Just like that. Just because I want the edge to be darker than everything else, but I don't want to have a hard line there. So that's why I'm using a float. I just want a dark edge. There we are. So now that that's done, I'm going to dry it, and then we're ready to trace our line drawing on. Now for the background on this, I like to wait on this one. It's a little bit different. I like to wait on this one a little because I want to have control over the placement of it. So this dark float is lamp black. It could be a Dracula sign, Charmaine. So there we go. Now I kind of like, do you see how it's very dark at the edges and then it gradually gets darker in other places? I really like that. It's going to work in our favor. So I've already got my line drawing ready to go. And I'm going to tape it in place. I'm going to use a couple of pieces of painter's tape. I really don't want this to shift. And I want to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to use a piece of painter's tape right down here at the bottom and fold it under. I'm going to hang on to this one. And we're going to use white graphite A nice old piece here. And we're going to start with the lettering. And once I have that all positioned, I'm going to take my tape and I want to tape this in place as well, so it does not shift. I don't want the paper to shift. Now I'm going to use my red gel pen, but I'm also going to use my steel eraser, or my steel ruler. I like my steel ruler. Because on a font like this, there's a whole lot of straight vertical lines. And we're going to make sure that they stay that way. So whenever I have lettering that has a lot of really straight vertical lines, I get my stainless steel ruler out. And I use a steel one for a reason. Little plastic rulers have a tendency over time, because they get thrown in your bin, thrown in a drawer, they get chipped along the edges in particular, and that creates a really irregular line, and it's very difficult to paint to a line that is not nice and straight. So if you want straight lettering, you've got to have straight lines, and that means all of them. So all of the verticals, I do all the verticals first, then we'll do the horizontals. And it's very important that these lines are clean and straight. It makes a huge difference in the quality of the paintwork when the lines you're working to are straight. Sometimes you can eyeball it, but honestly, you're better off just grab that ruler, and then your straight lines are no longer an issue. And over here. Straight vertical lines, use the ruler. Curved lines are a bit more forgiving, but those vertical and horizontal lines are not. The human eye is conditioned. We are conditioned to read things from top to bottom, left to right. And when things are not straight, we can pick it out very quickly. If they're going uphill, it's like walking into a room and, one painting is crooked. It drives me nuts. So, all of my verticals are done. And then I'm just going to connect them. Connect all of those long curved ones to those vertical ones. As I said, those curved ones are far more forgiving. They don't jump out to you that badly when they're a little out of true. But if those vertical lines are not straight, there we go. And I like to use this red pen because I can see where I've been. And that way I don't have to move my line drawing to check that I got everything. This is much simpler. Oop, I missed a straight line. I got the bottom one, but I forgot this one. There we go. Da, da, da. Easy peasy. Hi, Barb and Elsie. We have two Tom Thompson prints hanging in my living room, and they're on the same wall as the front door. And every time somebody shuts the front door, the Tom Thompson on the left goes out of whack. I am forever adjusting that thing. And I have no idea why it does it, but it does. Every time somebody closes the front door, the painting can't. And I have a lot of artwork. I have paintings everywhere, and that one in particular drives me absolutely bananas. Because every time I walk into the living room, I have to straighten it. It's one of those things. And that front door opens and closes, a dozen times a day, so. That Tom Thompson, every time I walk in there, seems to be out of whack. And there's one in the master bathroom that does that too. I have no idea why. It drives me crazy. Yeah. So, doing this lettering, I love this particular style. Any vintage style typography really appeals to me in a great many ways. Vintage signage, old labels, things like that. Old advertising art really is a favorite of mine. And I've recently developed an affection for patent art. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's the illustrations for things that have been given a patent. Everything from the toilet paper roll to which, by the way, I have that one up in the main floor bathroom. Toilet paper roll and the spigot, the tap that we put in the bathroom. I have those two patent drawings printed and done and hanging in the main floor bath, and which I get a kick out of. I just think they're hilarious. But I was cruising through a site the other day, and they had hundreds of patent prints that you could choose from. There's just so many different things. Some of them are absolutely hilarious, and some of them are quite amazing. So if you're interested in that type of artwork at all, architectural drawings, naval maps, things like that. We have two massive naval maps hanging in what we call the computer room. It used to be my husband's office, and at one time it was the dining room. We have two huge prints. One of Campobello Island, and the other one is of Grand Manan, which are islands both off the South Shore down here, and they're nautical maps. And they're quite beautiful, quite technical, and quite beautiful. They make fascinating art. So we have prints like that hanging up. But I've developed a fascination for these incredible patent drawings, these technical images. They're just phenomenal and so fun. And you learn a little bit from them as well, and you discover, for instance, when the toilet paper roll was designed, I think it was somewhere around 1918 or 1914. I can't remember exactly, but, and then the same with, the spigot. The spigot is a lot older than I thought it was. Yeah. Thank you, Joan. It is cute. I really like this one. So we've got a little bit of holly, and I'm just going to quickly trace the cup. Ordinarily, when I do anything with whipped cream in it, I've got to make it a bit more elaborate, and I decided to do something a little simpler this time. And I just wanted it to have that that vintage look, so I didn't want anything too elaborate. So I'm relying heavily on the font this time for this design, because our coffee cup here is pretty simple. I didn't do anything too over the top with that. I did put it on a saucer, which I ordinarily don't do, but I thought that would be fun this time around. And when I stopped last night to take a breath, I sat down. I was designing a new piece, so I was working on a bunch of different things the last couple of days. I've had a spurt of inspiration. There we go. We're almost done here. I'm just going to quickly, I'm going to grab my little shape maker here. I feel the same way about circles as I do about straight lines on things. So for berries, anything that needs to be round, make sure it's round. I like using one of these shape makers to trace those berries. It just makes everything crisper and cleaner, and then you're not fighting against a crooked line. I like it this way. Nice round berries, nice round decorative candies, whatever you want to call these. They're super cute. There we go. Nice edge to the cup. And I do believe I just got 3 more leaves to do, and then we're ready to get started on the paint. I know it's so much fun to sit here and watch somebody trace something, but it gives me an opportunity to cover a few little tricks. There we go. Alrighty. And I'm such a rocket scientist. I didn't have graphite paper under it. Lights are on and nobody's home. So now I have to release the tape here. See, I got talking, wasn't paying attention. I have done this so often recently, it's not funny. There we go. After all of that, I got to do it again. Like I said, I think the cheese slid off my cracker this morning. I just couldn't sleep. Body was not happy with me. So I figured if I'm going to be up, I might as well get up and get something done. So I did. And I still seem to have a ton of energy today. I have no idea why. Because I've got lots of things I can be doing. I love this time of year. I have so much energy at this time of year because, one, it's not blistering hot anymore. I hate heat. I could never live in a place like California or Phoenix or Florida. I'd die. Too hot for me. Too hot. Okay. Okay, I'm going to make circles all over again. Liz, what expression is that? Lights are on, nobody's home? Or the cheese slid off my cracker? Yeah, lights are on, nobody's home is a favorite of mine. That and the elevator doesn't go to the top floor is another one I use all the time. And if I'm feeling particularly dim, then it'll be I'm a French fry short of a Happy Meal. Oh, look at that! I think I finally got it all. Nope, still missing something. Good gravy. Et voila. There we go. And I'm still telling you. There we go. All right. Love it. So we're going to take the time right at the very beginning to do some work on this lettering, which gives me a chance to answer another question that somebody had sent me. And the question was, what is a rigger? Now, I think I'm going to treat myself to a new rigger today. Maybe not. Oh, heavens. Here we go. I'm going to treat myself to a new rigger. I haven't given myself a new rigger in quite a while. So I'm going to grab a 2 and let's see if I can't find a 0. And a 0. There we go. I always have a little stash of riggers. So I've got a 2 and a 0. This is my 0. That's my 2. And this one is an extremely fine one. One I do not use very often, but this one is a 10-aught. It's a very, very fine rigger. And it's great for doing little teeny tiny lettering, but I don't use it very often. When I need something that small, I have a tendency to grab my micron liner. Because I am fond of my micron liner too. So this font, we're going to work with some really fine riggers. They are not liners. This is what the question was. It's like someone had asked me what was a rigger, and then said, I just realized that it's actually just a long liner, and it is not a liner. When you look at a liner brush, they come to a very sharp point, much like a needle. And when you press down on them, they round out very much like a round brush, because essentially they're made the same way, just longer. A rigger actually comes to a square edge like a flat. So when you press on them, you'll get a chisel edge like a flat brush, which makes them ideal for painting lettering, which is also why I use them. So I'm going to be using a 0 and a number 2 for this, and I'm also going to be using a 3/8 angled shader. And now I'm using a Dynasty Faux Squirrel. And the color I'm going to be using first is soft black. I'm going to get my Jo Sonia. A little bit of glaze. I like a little bit of glaze. And I'm going to pick up a small amount of soft black on the brush. And we're going to put a shadow under our lettering right up against that straight line. Just like that. So we want a nice tight shadow right against our lettering. I'm going to bring this up so you can see where I am. Now when you're floating in a shadow like this, blend it well on your palette and then get that whole chisel edge on the surface. The nice part about doing this at this point is that if you go over the lettering, it's okay. It's not going to hurt a thing. But it is going to give your lettering a really nice lift off of that surface. And as I said, don't panic if that float goes over top of the lettering. It's all right. You haven't painted anything yet. It's just easier to do this at this point than to do it afterwards. So look at that. Don't forget, inside that curve, in here, look at that, in there. So we've got a nice little shadow on the right side, darkest value towards the letter. The riggers you can order, you can get them at thebrushguys.com. They're also available on Dick Blick. But on thebrushguys.com, we have a coupon code for you. It's Tracy M, capital Tracy, capital M. Use that coupon code when you order at the Brush Guys, and you get a discount off of their discounted prices, because they're already at a discount. It's best pricing anywhere for Dynasty brushes. And if you happen to enjoy shopping on Dick Blick, which I do, it's just dangerous for me because I like it, then yes, you can get, oh my goodness, I just realized I missed a part of that letter. Ooh. So perfect opportunity to show you how I fixed that. Okay, so here, down here on the A, I have a chalk pencil. Down here at the bottom of the A, I missed the little rounded bit, so I'm just going to sketch that in. And then I also missed the little bar in the center of the A, so sketch that in as well. If you haven't got one of these, it's called a Bohin. This is a seamstress pencil. It's a chalk pencil. Absolutely fabulous. I have 2 of them. Love these. And you can get those on Amazon now too. They're great. So I'm going to finish the shading. Ooh, a little too dark. There we go. Finish the shading on my lettering. This font would be so pretty if it said Merry Christmas. Wouldn't that be pretty? I love this. This type of font is just lovely. And I'm a fan of fonts. I think you guys figured that one out already. They're as much an art as the rest of the designing, in my opinion. I love lettering. And I love treating it like it's part of the design as opposed to treating it like it's words. And I think there's a bit of a mental block when it comes to lettering. People are terrified of it for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it is quite simply because we don't think of it as part of the art. We think of it as something separate. What color am I using? Soft black is the color that I am using. Yes, Sandy McTeer also carries. Why is it? I didn't think of that. Sandy carries my riggers as well. So I'm going to dry this. And I see a spot where I need to put a shadow. Just just in here, I want to put a little shadow underneath that. Just, it's going to give this lettering a little more height. I'm just touching up a few little spots where I don't think the shadow quite did it, if you know what I mean. There we go. I'm just deepening. I like shadows to be a little more substantial. I think I like the drama. I like the drama when lettering pops off of a background. And this way it also has a little bit of life to it. It's not just flat and stuck to the surface. Diane. I really like this surface to start with. This is one of my, it's like the arched sign. I really love this surface. It's very functional. As cute as this is, to me, this would be so cute sitting next to the coffee maker or, in a little hot chocolate station over the holidays. I just think that this is really cute. But I'm really quite fond of signs like this. I think that these work really nicely. To have one that says hot coffee or hot chocolate, hot coffee, hot tea, 3 different signs all running in a row, I think is really cute. This one could be done just as hot chocolate. Take away the holly and add a little daisy or something to it, or just a spoon or marshmallows or what have you. You could do so many fun things with this very basic design and then make it less holiday oriented and just change out some of the design elements. Would make it so simple. Or make it strictly winter. Take those out and just use snowflakes. I just think it would be such a fun and simple design that is easily adapted to so many things. Diane, Debbie, you're asking, what is for dinner? We are having honey garlic barbecue pork tenderloin. That's what we're having tonight, with saffron rice, and we're having German style green beans. Hi, Linda. So I'm going to get my rigger wet. Now, the color that I'm using is warm white for this. I very rarely use titanium white. I almost always use warm white. Oh, that's not warm white. I'm glad I read the bottle. Now, I got a box full of goodies yesterday. I brought in some more surfaces because, got to have some really cool surfaces. So I got more of these signs in. So I've got lots of these in stock, but I also got some really cute cookies that can be added to these for the holidays. My brain is just very festive mode right now. And so I've been playing with some of those ideas today. And I had a weird moment yesterday. I was doing an image search of a tin can, and everybody was like, why are you looking at tin cans? I had another idea, so don't be surprised if tin cans show up in the next little while. I just don't ask. What size riggers do I recommend? There are a variety of sizes and they all have their purpose, but for a lot of the stuff that I do, I use a number 2 or a 0. Those are the 2 that I use the most often. I have been known to go a little smaller, and usually one size larger, but quite honestly, the difference is negligible. So I tend to stick to a 2 and a 0. Those seem to be my go-to sizes for just about everything. So when you load up a rigger, you're going to thin that paint so that it's a little thicker than milk. And when you press on the brush, it should form no point, but just a little chisel edge. You see how it's a little square across the edge? What exactly is a rigger? This is a rigger. Looks like a liner, but it isn't. Yeah, that's why my reads. Are the brush guys Canadian? No, they're not. They're based in California. Their shipping is very reasonable. I've had great service from them. They're fantastic. So, a rigger brush. Looks like a liner, but isn't. It has a synthetic faux squirrel in there. It has a rounded ferrule, but the hairs are arranged so that when you press on the brush, it forms a flat surface. So you get a square chisel edge on the edge of the brush. It does not come to the same type of point that a liner does. So it gives you this nice flat edge, which makes it great for doing this. So I can paint into those little rounded edges quite easily. And then I can press down and open the brush up and pull it in a straight line. And if I get a really good press, I can open the brush up till it fills that space. And it makes painting lettering a breeze. I had a little stray hair in there. It was bugging me. Just a manufacturing. It's not unusual to get a loose hair every once in a while. But they're easy to take care of. So in this particular case with this design, the lettering is more the feature of this. It's what gives this whole piece its vintage feel. And quite honestly, I could have painted the background purple and put this lettering on, and it would still generate that more vintage effect, that more vintage look. So the lettering in this one is more a primary feature than even the cup. And because I can load this brush up, it holds a ton of paint. So it makes painting those bigger areas very simple. So for those vertical lines, press down, let the brush fill the space. Look how nice and straight that is, because you're working to a straight edge. If that edge was all wonky and crooked, you would have the devil's own time getting a nice straight line. And the same with these. Press down, come back up onto the chisel edge. Press down, let the brush open up, and then come back up on the chisel edge. Let the brush do its job. No, they're called a rigger. Most brush companies make their own version of it. Some might be a little bit longer. Um, but in general, they're all made pretty much the same way. Now, one question that people ask me a lot especially when they see this up close, and they realize that I'm only using one coat of white paint over top of that red. You don't really need to have them painted solid because we're going to do shading at the bottom and we're going to do highlighting at the top. So a lot of that sort of thinness that you might see in here is going to disappear. However, if you are not happy with how it looks, don't be afraid to go back in and put another coat on. In general, I don't. I usually end up sanding these to distress them anyway, so I don't worry about getting them fully opaque. But in general, one coat is usually sufficient. But if you find that it is not to suit you, then by all means, feel free. You can put another coat on. It's not going to hurt. There we go. There we are. Now, even when you're painting this, at some point you're going to look at it and go, ugh, it looks so rough. But remember, you still have to erase all these graphite lines, and once you get rid of them, everything seems to just come together. How do I store my brushes? Mine, I lay flat till they're dry. I clean them, lay them flat till they're dry, and then I store them bristle up. And if they're not in one of those containers, then they're in sleeves and laying horizontal. But most of the time, the brushes that I use every day, they get cleaned after I'm done painting for the day and then lay flat to dry. Lettering is fun, as long as you don't overthink it. And if you just think of it as another surface that you have to paint, it just takes some of that intimidation factor away, I think. Everyone's always so concerned about how their handwriting looks or how their lettering looks. If it's straight and level, the rest sort of falls into place. And that's my attitude toward it. My handwriting most of the time looks like I should have been a doctor because I write for myself, so a lot of the time my handwriting is only legible to me. But this type of lettering I can do for hours. And have done on many occasions. Et voila. That little bit of shading makes a world of difference. to your lettering as well. It gives it life. It makes it pop off of that background. I love it. I love lettering. I just think it's an elegant thing. What brush cleaner do I recommend? I use two. There's two that I use all the time. Jack's Studio Soap is my all-time favorite. That brush cleaner will clean anything out of any brush. It doesn't matter if it's been sitting there for a month or if it's completely dry and hardened, whether it's oil-based or acrylic. Jack's Studio Soap is, bar none, the best brush cleaner I have ever used. The other brush cleaner that I use on a regular basis is Decorative Brush Magic. Because that is just, it's a fantastic little brush cleaner. It has been a fail-safe for me for years. I have used it for years. And it works brilliantly. And you can also clean your jewelry with it, which is really great because it makes everything nice and sparkly. See? My sparklies, I use Decorative Brush Magic to clean my sparklies. Oh, and by the way, I'm very much in like Halloween mode. Although I don't do a lot for Halloween. I'm in Halloween mode. I'm wearing like voodoo dolls and sugar skulls, and I have my skull ring on today. So it's fall. I'm ready. I have pumpkins. I switched out my front door mat from welcome to hello pumpkin. So I've got pumpkins, polka dotted pumpkins on my doormat. I have polka dotted and checked and Harlequin covered pumpkin welcome signs hanging on my front door. I have garden flags with pumpkins on them. So I'm in fall mode. I don't care if it is still 28 degrees during the day. I'm in fall mode. I'll just turn on the air conditioner and convince myself that it's late. Where's Jack's Studio Soap? You can get it almost anywhere. You can get it on Amazon. Curry's carries it. So does Schwartzman's. I believe Stockade carries it. I know Endeavor's carries it. My favorite art store here on the East Coast. It is a phenomenal product. And by the way, Jack's Studio Soap will also take stains out of your clothing if you get paint on your clothing. It's just, I love that stuff. And I love the smell of linseed oil. I know a lot of people don't, but I love the smell of it. And so it's another reason that I like it. You can also use it for cleaning your hands. So if you get oil-based paint or something, or even a solvent-based paint on your hands, dip your hands in a little of that Studio Soap. It is amazing. It will clean it off. It's great. And it's not hard on your skin. Just saying. It's an absolutely beautiful product. And if you have a Jack Reicherson store handy to you, you can get it there as well. And I know Dick Blick has it. So it's not a difficult product to find if you know what you're looking for. There we go. So I'm almost done with this lettering. It's just such a great font. Looking good. I thought I was gonna say, oh, it's you.
I don't see YouTube on there.
No,
4K.
I don't know. Woo. So, almost done with this lettering. I'm going to go back and have a quick look in a couple of spots just to make sure everything is nice and at least even. It doesn't have to be fully opaque, but at least even. I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to make sure this is good and dry. And let you know, oh, that was the other thing I was going to tell you. The BOGO coupon code is good for 2 more days. It ends on Monday, so all of the e-packets are on BOGO. So if you're not part of my newsletter, you would not know that. So if you register for my newsletter, people that get my newsletter get all kinds of coupon codes and specials and fun stuff. So we have a BOGO sale on all e-packets. Okay. There we are. Such a fun font. Patrick, I'll be happy to email you the link to that font if you want. There we go. So, while that lettering, I wanted to show you something really quick. Now, you have 2 choices when it comes to doing something like this. On this one, I went for just a little more opacity. I wanted a higher contrast. So I went for a little more opacity, and I put on a second coat on a few of these just to give them that little more uniformity. And then along the bottom of each row of letters, I put a float of asphaltum. Now, what that does is it gives this lettering a little substance, a little visual weight. We're not drastically changing the lettering, but by putting that shadow in there, it gives this lettering a little more weight, a little more substance. And I'm only going to bring that color up about halfway. And it is not a heavy shadow. So little float of asphaltum that comes up halfway from the bottom of each letter. And you can literally float across the bottom and then walk it up about halfway. So it solves a couple of issues. If your paint is not fully opaque, it kind of disguises any little wobbles and bobbles that it may have there. And it also gives them a little age, if you know what I mean. It gives the lettering a little more authenticity, I find. So I just put that float and then I walk it up. Float across the bottom. You notice I'm not worrying about whether or not I get onto the background with this. It really doesn't matter. As long as it stays within the letter, it's fine. So float the color like so that it comes about halfway up. So start that float on one side, come right across the bottom, and then pull it up the other. Halfway up, float across the bottom, halfway up. And when you get halfway up, you've got to cover that part too. That little piece that's sticking in the middle needs it as well. So do you see what I mean about it having a little more substance and a little more visual weight? Just that little shadow just gives it a little more heft. It stops looking so flat and a little lifeless. And I'm going to do the same thing to this bottom piece here. And again, I'm bringing that color about halfway up. So I'm going to dry this. So between the shadow that we put on the background and the shadow that we put along the bottom of the lettering, now the lettering has a little more weight. Visually, it just doesn't look like white lettering on a dark red background. It has a little more substance to it. And lift. It doesn't look like it's stuck there. It hovers a little bit. Oh, Karen, 5 feet? I think that's pushing it, sweetheart. So, now, at this point, you can make a decision about how you want this lettering to look. If you really like the heavily distressed look, right about now, you can go ahead and start sanding. My only suggestion would be to sand in one direction and one direction only. In this particular case, because this piece is horizontal and elongated this way, I would sand in that direction so that the lettering takes on a little bit of worn appearance. So I'm going to use one of these ultra fine little sanding sponges, and I'm just going to gently sand my lettering. And I do mean gentle. I'm focusing the sanding on the lettering. I just want to wear this lettering a little. And if I wear through the white and back to the red, that's okay. I like the worn look. I think it works very well for this. And I know what you're thinking. What about the background? So, there we go. So now we've got this white patch. Most of that is dust. So I'm going to take my angled brush and I'm going to just put a wash of water over top of this. And you see we've got nice little wear patterns, and it's softer. It has a really nice distressed appearance, but it isn't over the top. It also eliminates any little flaws that you might not like, any little areas that are perhaps a little too thick or a little too thin. It kind of balances things out. And where did it go? I saw that question. What grit did I say this? Nancy, this is a 120 and 220 grit. Or 180, sorry. Yeah. So it's a very fine on one side. It's almost like a buffing sand, like for buffing your nails. It's very, very fine, and that's what I used. I used the smoothest side. So I love how that looks. I like that distressed appearance. It has a gently worn over time look. There we go. So we are done with the lettering for the time being. We're going to come back over to our teacup here. Our hot chocolate cup, I should say. And I've got a nice little round brush here. I don't even know what this one is from. Couldn't tell you. It's just a round brush I had in my stash. So I'm going to paint my whipped cream with warm white. And yes, I said whipped cream. I prefer whipped cream to marshmallows. Sue me. There we go. A little bit of warm white. Now, I like to leave a tiny little space in here. I'm going to shade in there anyway, but when I put the next coat on, it's going to cover that little space. I'll still be able to see it because that's my guideline for my shading, but it becomes white and less noticeable. Now, I painted right over my little decorative beads. That's okay. I can put them back on. I'm not too worried about them. There we go. I know some people like marshmallows in their hot chocolate. I actually prefer whipped cream. But that's just me. And so my hot chocolate tends to have whipped cream on it. Where did that? Robin Storm, did you get another puppy? I'm not allowed to go to the animal shelters. I go to drop off donations and they don't let me go in unsupervised because I want to bring them all home. Shannon, I don't hate them. I think they have their place, but not my hot chocolate. They're too sweet. Just far too sweet. Okay. So the color that I used for the cup kind of threw everybody this week. Everyone thought it was Bahama Blue. It's not. The color that I used for this cup is Shoreline. Not a color I use often, but I thought it was really pretty. Your Yorkies would not allow it. Marshmallows. Oh, someone tried to give you a puppy. I think it would depend on the puppy, but I would be hard pressed to say no. One of my neighbors just got a new puppy, and he's too stinking cute. So, the cup is that Shoreline blue. I just love this color. It's in the same tonal range as Bahama Blue. The only difference is this has no green in it. This is a very cool blue. I thought about Bahama Blue for this and then changed my mind simply because I found it was a little too warm and I wanted a cooler blue. Yes, there is some stenciling on this piece. I'm just doing it a little differently this time around. We're going to be doing it at the end instead. Usually I do my background first, but not in this case because I want the effect to be a little bit different. And I want to control where that effect goes. So I chose to do my stenciling towards the end as opposed to at the very beginning. So I'm using a little bit of Shoreline to base coat my cup. Probably going to use 2 coats. That's okay. This blue is a little on the gray side. There's a grayish cast to this. And it's a cool gray, so it's giving us nice cool tones. And I'm going to switch to a smaller round. Picked up white. Didn't need white. Wanted blue. There we go. And you'll notice that I paint to fill the shape. So I paint following the shape, as opposed to just, I follow the shape of the cup. When I'm applying any color, that way any brush marks that you develop are going to fall into the shape of the cup. So it makes any brush marks or flaws a lot less noticeable. Okay, am I taking a nap after class? No, after class I'm going to go finish my pork and take some cranberry candy out of the dehydrators. Gardens are all done. I might go out and pick some lavender. My lavender did very well for it. It's his first summer. I was very impressed. Usually it takes a year or so for the lavender to really take hold. But the lavender really did well this year. And I've had 3 blooms out of it. I haven't harvested anything off of it because I wanted to give it a chance to take hold well. My 12-year-old lavender plants did not make it through last winter. I was quite upset by that, but I did get some beautiful French lavender this year, so we shall see. Hopefully it survives this winter, and then I can get a good harvest out of it next year. It's not a big plant yet, but it did very well, so I might get some leaves before the fall is out. I might bring in some lavender leaves. I love lavender. Unicorn hot chocolate, that's so cute. So the saucer gets painted with the same color. And we're going to use that Shoreline blue. Such a pretty color. And I thought it was an unusual choice for, well, maybe not unusual, but something different for a festive piece. Always seems to be, very bright blues, very traditional blues, end up in more festive pieces. I wanted something a little bit different, and that's one of the reasons I went. What is this about peeps? What vitamins I take? You know what? The only thing I take is B12. I take a D3 and that's about it. Magnesium. And take a little bit of black cohosh and some turmeric. And that's about it. Not a big vitamin taker, but I have found over the years that I need to take my B12. Otherwise it gets down, and so do I. That's not a good thing. So I like my B12. And my D3s, the vitamin Ds that I take, they just keep me going. And as for energy, I don't have a shortage of energy. I do get tired like everybody, but I think that my energy level corresponds to my to-do list. And it depends on what's on that to-do list. And right now, at this time of year, I love my kitchen, so I cook a lot. And yesterday afternoon, I made pie filling. My sweetie peeled a whole bunch of apples for me because they've been sitting there waiting for me to do something with them, and I had been wanting to get to it. So he offered to peel them all for me, so it didn't take us very long to get 6 quarts of pie filling made. And then I had one jar that was sort of a half jar, so when I got up this morning, I quickly made an apple crisp, threw that in the oven, and right after the scones come out. I have this horrible feeling. Oh, taking metformin depletes it. I was just making sure I haven't missed a question. Peeling apples is a pain. I did buy myself a really nice peeler, and that's worked exceptionally well. So I've got my shoreline on. I'm rather happy with that. And we're going to start with the inside of that cup. Now, even though it's such a small area, and it hardly seems worth it, I know, not that many people will notice, there are 2 small areas inside this cup that need to be painted asphaltum. And they're right here. These 2 little points at the edge of the cup. It's the only spot where you can see what's in the cup, kinda. They're tiny, but I've discovered that if you leave it red, it stands out, and then you know that it's not finished. So I like to put a little coat of asphaltum in there. And then I'm going to use that rigger and a little bit of warm white, and I'm going to mix a little touch of that shoreline with it. I didn't want it bright white. I wanted it but lighter than the rest of the cup. So, and this is the edge of the cup. There we go. There we are. So I've got 1 coat of that color on there. I don't think it needs more than that because we're going to put a highlight on there as well. So I don't think that it's necessary to So I'm going to grab some warm white. I want to put one more coat on this. I want this a little more even and a little brighter. And this is one of the few times that I use titanium white, is when I do this whipped cream. I'm going to shade it with asphaltum, and then I'm going to highlight it with titanium white. So remember what I said about going over those lines with the next coat of warm white? Well, this is it. So it becomes a bit more opaque, a little solid. It doesn't look quite so loose. And there's a spot in there I'm not happy with. Let's see if we can't scrub that out. There we go. And we'll dry that. So you can tell I'm kind of in the festive mood. I've been doing so much with Christmas stuff. I've been working on some Santas, and I've been working on things like this. And I put a new printable up this week as well in the free printable section of 2 oval ornaments. They're very pretty with Christmas roses. And I'll have a couple more new ones this week. I've got another piece coming with Christmas roses as well. I've been having too much fun with the whole rose thing and Christmas stuff. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with Christmas, and we're just September. And this blue, isn't this pretty against this dark red? It has a really nice vintage feel to it. So there we go. Our shading color for this cup, super simple, Prussian blue. I know it's a really dark color for this, but I want a nice deep shadow. I want high contrast, and I want this blue to really pop. So we're going to be using a little bit of Prussian blue. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch angled shader to shade this cup. And we want this cup to have a little more substance, a little more dimension. So we're going to start with the shadow on the highlight side, which is over here on the left. Blend your float well. You don't want this color full strength. So you're going to blend it out. We want the color nice and transparent. And you're going to start your shadow right at the edge of that cup. Go right through the leaves, it doesn't matter. And right down to the bottom of this cup, like that. Of course, my brush doesn't have enough moisture. There we go. Right down to the bottom of the cup. Just like that. I'll bring this up a little bit so you can see. It's a transparent float, but nice and dark at one edge. Let it gradually fade out. We only want that to be about a 1/2 inch wide. That whole float only about a 1/2 inch wide. Right there. The float on the other side is going to be a bit bigger. It's going to be a bit wider because this is the shaded side. This is the side that is not getting light. It is blocked from the light source. So we need a much wider float over here. And you're going to walk that out till it's about 1/3 of the way. So we've got a much wider float over here. So it's about 1 inch wide. This one's about a 1/2 inch wide. So 1/3. So we're going to have that nice dark shadow. And then we're going to do a nice little shadow on the handle where it joins. I got a little too much moisture in my brush here. There we go. Because the light is only going to strike in here, and then it's going to be darkest back there. I don't need a mop. There we go. And then we're going to put a nice little shadow along the bottom. There's a little foot on the bottom of that cup. It's going to have a nice dark shadow right here. Down in to the saucer. And there's a ring, the bottom of that saucer right there. Just like that. And there's a lip on our saucer. Remember the lip of the teacup? We're going to do another version of that right here. Nice little float. It's going to be about 1/8 of an inch wide. See how that float comes out? Let's see if I can bring this up a little closer so you can see. Darkest value here, so it leaves that lighter edge right there. We're going to do the same thing on this side. And it just leaves like 1/8 of an inch border on the edge of the saucer. Just like that. So, looks pretty rough at this point. So, you will note, I didn't base coat the leaves. And for purpose. I wanted to leave those blank. Now I can fix any little wobbles and bobbles in places that don't look the greatest. I can go in and I can put those shadows in quite easily. Make things darker as I need them to be. What's that? Now I got YouTube and Facebook pops in. So I'm going to dry this really well. And then we're going to use a stencil for this. So I'm using a 1/4 inch check. Now, this cup is small, so just to make my life a little simpler, I'm going to use one of my minis for this. And I'm going to put my check stencil on the diagonal so that I get more of a square diamond pattern on my cup, like so. And I need a smaller stencil brush, so I'm going to work with probably 1/4 inch for this one. Now, I want this brush to be nearly dry when I do this, because I don't really want these to be fully opaque. I want them to sort of have a dry look and an imperfect look. And this is another reason I didn't paint the leaves, because this way you have an element of control. So if you get them where someplace you don't want them, then when you put the leaves in, it'll hide it. There we go. So now I have that little diamond pattern on my cup. I'm going to dry this really well, and then we're going to deepen the shading again. We do have a set of those minis. We're waiting on a shipment to come in at the moment. We have a set of 6 of these minis where we have a knit stencil. We have the check in 2 sizes. We have a 1/8 and the 1/4 inch. And we have a polka dot in the 1/4 inch and the 1/8. And we also have a 3/8 honeycomb. So we have a great little set of these minis. There's 6 of them in a set. So I'm going to rinse this brush and we're going to shade one more time. Same place. We're just going to deepen that shadow. By doing the stenciling after the first shadow, it traps it between the layers. And so it becomes part of the cup as opposed to something that we just worked over. So it gives you a really nice effect. So I'm going to walk that float out a little. Kind of gives them that look that they wrap around. So once that blue is on, we're going to deepen that shading again, this time with a float of asphaltum. And it is thinned. You're not using it full strength. You're going to go over that float and over this one. And you walk this out, same way you did the first one. And you're going to deepen the shading underneath the cup. Wherever you have put that Prussian blue, you're going to put a float of thinned asphaltum. That thinned asphaltum is what gives you those nice deep shadows. Grounds everything really nicely. Et voila. Now I'm going to dry this. There we go. So we are at the point where we're going to start adding some highlights to our cup. And this is where the placement of that highlight is very important. We have a narrower shadow on this side, wider one on this side, and it puts our highlight right about here. So right at the edge of that 1 inch. So 1 inch in from the edge is where your highlight is going to start. So right there. And we're going to use a dry brush to put that highlight in. I'm going to use this is my Mezzaluna. I'm using the large. Large or medium will work just fine. I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm whites. And as I said, we're going to start our highlight right here. And I'm going to pull it in the shape of the cup. So it's going to have a slight curve when it gets down to the bottom. And it's going to be about 1/2 inch wide. And then you're going to do this again, starting in the same place, but that highlight's going to get a little bit shorter. So 1/2 inch wide, but now it's getting a little bit shorter. So each time I put on a highlight, I start in the same place. So that is your light impact point. That's where that white is going to be the brightest. Because that's where the light strikes first. Now, because of that highlight, our other highlights are going to follow suit. So we're going to have a highlight on the inside edge of that cup right there. That's the lip of that inner ring where the cup sits. We're going to have a highlight here on the outside edge of our cup. And then remember this at the top here, it gets a little highlight. So all of these highlights all line up together because that's where the way the light is striking at that point. So here, 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 and here. We're going to have a little reflected light on the inside of the handle. A little bit here. Now you can float that in, or you can just stroke it in, either one. It's just a tiny little highlight, and a bulk of it is going to be hidden underneath some of this greenery, but I think it's important that it be there, just so that it gives you the understanding of where that light impact is. So the light is striking here and wrapping down, light strikes there, light strikes there, light strikes there. So we have that light impact point. So I'm going to switch back to my rigger because now we're going to do some fun stuff. I want to base coat this holly. And I'm going to use my rigger to do this. And I love that because I didn't base coat this beforehand, I can fix things. So if something doesn't quite look the way I want it to, or I got paint someplace I shouldn't have, or say my leaf was too small or crooked, this is where I can fix those things. You can correct a multitude of sins by waiting on base coating things to a certain point in the progress. Easy peasy. Now the green that I'm using for the leaves is lush green. I love this green. It's almost like antique green, but it's a little brighter. And it's not quite as opaque. It's a little less yellow. It's a really pretty green. And it's a great color for holly. Now, the color palette that I chose for this is a complementary color palette, which means that all of these colors are across from each other on the color wheel. So I'm using red and blue, red and green. So it is a very traditional color palette. The only thing I did do was I changed out a couple of the tonal values. So although the colors are traditional, they're not necessarily common. So, which was one of the reasons I went to this. I wanted something that had a vintage feel, but nothing too dated. I didn't want it to look outdated. Vintage, yes, but not outdated. And then don't forget, we've got a holly leaf out here. I like the little, this just balances things, pulls the color from one side to the other. We had a little bit of negative space out here, and this is an ideal spot to tuck something like that. Balances out the lettering as well. Just in general brings a little balance to the composition. I hope you guys are enjoying the little art history lessons I've been putting up on social media. I've been having a lot of fun with them. It was one of my favorite topics at school, art history. Ta-da. Almost done. Love these greens. Now the berries I'm using the same red that I used for the base coat for this sign. So I'm using this Tuscan red. Now this is a blue red. This is a red that leans towards the cooler tones. I love this red. It is beautiful, it's vibrant, and it's on the cooler side of the reds. It leans toward the blue and the purple and away from the oranges and yellows. So it's a cool red. And it also works so well for this because it balances nicely with that blue. So we're going to use that gorgeous red, Tuscan red. Now I know I talk about this a lot, especially when we're painting with reds at the holidays, because I think it's important. So I've got one berry painted red, looks red. I'm going to pull a little bit of warm white and I'm going to paint another berry. Like so. I'm going to paint that one white and then I'm going to put that Tuscan red over top of it. I want you to see the difference that painting or underpainting something makes. There we go. So I'm going to take our Tuscan red. Now remember, I painted this one with the same color. And I'm going to use that same Tuscan red, one coat over top. Just one. So look at the difference. Let me dry this so you're looking at them both dry, because that's also important. Tuscan red, again, is a cool red. Works very well with the cooler blues that I chose here. And it's still a complementary color. So this is the difference when you undercoat. So this is the Tuscan red over top of Tuscan red and soft black. And then this is with the undercoat of white. Look at the difference, how bright and vibrant it is. So whenever you're painting over a dark color, if you have the opportunity, grab yourself a little bit of warm white, just one coat, doesn't need to be a ton of paint, and base coat your berries or base coat that surface with a little bit of warm white, especially if it's a color you want to be really bright, as we do in this case. I'm going to base coat those other two berries with warm white. And I'm going to do the same to these little guys down here. That little bit of warm white, just the one coat, you don't need to kill yourself to get it done. We're missing some berries. I love shape makers. They're awesome. So, shape makers to make circles. And a little bit of warm white. Et voilà. So that when you put that base color of red over top of that, you get this really great, vibrant red. Just makes a world of difference. This way they stand out. They don't get lost in that background. And then you get this really nice bright red. This works for yellows too. Any color that you want to really have some vibrancy that is notoriously transparent, like reds, like yellows. Having a white undercoat will make a world of difference. If you're doing flesh tones, try a green, something like a mint green underneath a flesh tone. You're going to get a really beautiful tone out of it. Oops. Look at how those reds stand out now. And anytime you want to mute a red, if you find a red is too overpowering in something, get a little green in there. A little bit of green will take it down. Yeah, a little bit of green under a skin tone will do wonders.
Good, I wasn't here for the glitter.
We haven't done the glitter yet. He's trying to avoid the glitter. He's in, he's out, he's in and out. So, let's talk about that whipped cream. So I'm going to use a little bit of thin asphaltum. I use asphaltum a lot. It's a great toning color, I think is the word I prefer to use. I'm going to shade my whipped cream with a float of thinned, heavily thinned asphaltum, because I don't want my whipped cream to be pure white. It's whipped cream. It's going to take on a nice little caramelly tone. So I'm going to dry that real quick, and then we're going to highlight that whipped cream with some titanium white. This is about the only time that I use titanium white. Then I'm going to show you a way to cheat to do the candies. So a little bit of titanium white on your palette. I'm going to use an angled shader for this, a 3/8 if I can find it. There it is. I have brushes all over the place today. A little bit of titanium white. Blend it out well. And remember what I said about the highlights? Those highlighted areas, pay particular attention to these areas here, all in line here. This is where you want that brightest point, is in line with this highlight. That's why I like doing that one first, because then you've got something to work from. So it's going to be its brightest in line with that. Just like so. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's whipped cream. So there is your whipped cream. Now, I'm going to dry this real quick. Now we're going to put some candies on our whipped cream. And I'm going to show you a quick way to do this. I'm going to I'm using a small stencil brush, and I'm going to use my shape maker. You can use a polka dot stencil. You can use whatever you have. I mean, whatever works. And you're going to choose the size of the candy you want. In this case, I think this is a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to grab a little of that Tuscan red on a stencil brush. And et voila, candy number 1. I'm going to tuck one in here, candy number 2. Comme ça. I'm going to tuck one up here. I'm going to pick up a little more paint. Number 3. And let's tuck one up here. 4. You can do as many or as few as you like, but that's an even number. Can't have an even number. So I'm going to tuck another smaller one over here. Because I can. It's my piece. I can do whatever I want. So anytime you have something like this, just go ahead and grab a stencil. Make your dots instead of killing yourself. So I'm going to dry that. We're going to shade these on that back side with that 3/8 angled shader. And I'm going to use, we're going to shade all of these same time. I'm going to use a little bit of that Prussian blue. Prussian blue, because it's a blue, and this is a blue-red, it's going to work just fine. So I'm going to shade all of my berries on the bottom right side, all of my little candies too. Bottom right side, little float of Prussian blue. And I like to leave a sliver of space between the outside edge and the edge of my float. Just a sliver, teeny tiny sliver of space. And I'm going to shade all of these as well. Just like that. So I've got a nice little shadow on all of my berries. And we're going to highlight using a little bit of warm white. Now I left that little sliver on that side. I'm going to do the same thing on the highlight side. Thin out your warm white. You don't need it full strength. Leave a little sliver and float that little highlight in on the left. It's a weak float. It is not a super bright highlight. It does not need to be. Now, I use warm white for these highlights, but if you struggle with it, you find that you end up with too bright a highlight or it just looks like a white band, throw a little Tuscan red into it. Use a pink instead. If you really struggle with it, can't get that highlight accurate, or it comes out looking like a blotch of white and it's bugging you, pick up a little bit of Tuscan red and do it with a bright pink. It'll turn it to a pinkish tone. Go ahead and put that on. If you have a hard time controlling the color, because it is a departure from that red, it's a big departure. So if you have a hard time controlling it, then by all means mix a little Tuscan red with it and make it into a pink. So we've got highlights on all those berries. I'm going to grab my rigger. And a little dot of titanium white is our light impact point. Remember, location, location, upper left, upper left. Just like in real estate, location is everything. Upper left, upper left. And same over here. So now we have nice bright berries. We just have one little thing to take care of with these candies. And I'll show you in just a second. Right now, as nice as they are, they just look like they're floating there. They're not grounded to the surface. So we need to ground them. I'm going to rinse out my angled shader, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of asphaltum. And again, just a little, doesn't need to be strong. And we're going to put a little shadow right here on the right hand side, just a little float on the back side of that berry, candy, whatever you want to call it. We're going to let it dry for a second. And then we're going to create a little divot, like it's sitting into that whipped cream. We're going to do that with a little float of asphaltum, like so. See, it cuts in. I'm just putting a little shadow underneath each candy, like that. So it looks like it's sitting in a little bowl. And if you have a shadow, then you have to have a highlight. I'm going to do that with a little bit of titanium white. So just on the back side of that little shadow that you put in, you're going to put a little highlight. Just a tiny one, doesn't have to be strong, but it needs to balance it so that you get that. So now they look like they're sitting or resting in the whipped cream. Easy peasy. So I'm going to get myself a clean palette, and we're going to tackle the holly leaves. This part's pretty simple. The color I chose for highlighting these leaves is festive green. Not a color I ordinarily use, but I really like this green. I think this one is really in keeping with what holly looks like. So I thought a festive green would make a great highlight color, and it's an easy one to brighten. And the shading color is black green because I want nice dark shadows. So I'm going to use some black green. You've seen me do this 100 times. I know you have, if you watched. So we're just going to put a little float of black green at the base of the leaf where it joins the stem. It's just a little U-shaped or V-shaped shading. Nothing over the top. Just at the bottom of the leaf where it joins the stem. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's always fascinating to me how quickly just putting in that one little shadow instantly makes those leaves, gives them some shape. And I'm going to do the same thing to these ones up here. So, nice little U-shaped float. It's just at the base. And to separate these two, like so. And right here. And then I'm going to dry all of this. This part's going to go pretty quick. So once we're done these leaves, we're going to take a minute to clean up the graphite lines, do a little stenciling, and then I'm going to show you how to embellish this, because this is just a fun piece to do. So we've got that shadow at the base. Now we're going to put our shadow in that center vein. So down the center vein right to the point. Oh my goodness. Not nearly enough water in that brush. There we go. That's better. I was not getting a float. I was getting a stripe. Wasn't working. There we go. So there's that little float down the center vein. I'm always fascinated by how quickly those leaves change in their appearance when you put it. So watch this one. Bring that float right out to the point. Look what it does for that leaf. It changes the direction of the leaf. So if I want this one and this one, so now those leaves have an actual bend in them. So let's dry this. This part goes so quick. We're going to add the highlight to this, and then I'm going to bring in a little neon because I think the neon just really adds to this. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and our highlight color is this one. It's Festive Green. I love this green. It's really vibrant. Look at that. And you would think that this would be a bit much over top of that lush green, but it really isn't. So I like that highlight on those points. Look at this. Such a pretty green. And then right down that center vein. And don't forget to bring it out to the other point. Remember that point right there? Look at that. Such a pretty green. To the point, center vein. Don't forget to bring it out to the edge. Now, if at any point you feel you're losing your shading in the center, you can always go back in with a little bit more. It doesn't matter. And this green is just so pretty. Another one that's nice over top of this lush green is the new one called New Leaf. That's a very pretty highlight color over top of that lush green. It's really, really nice. Just gives this lush green a little more lushness, I think is the word. So almost there. This does not take long. You get those center vein and get that point. Renee's avoiding the glitter. He didn't see all the glitter the other day. When he saw the piece, it didn't have glitter on it yet. So I'm going to bring this up. Look at the difference. You put that festive green over top. This is just the base color with the shading. Look at how much livelier it is. And it also brings these leaves into the same tonal range as that red. So it gives it, lots of life, which is what we want. And I'm going to bring a little bit of neon green into this. I just so you can see how much bolder these greens get when you bring in a little of that neon, and you don't need to bring in much. I just like that it's got a little oomph to it. And it works particularly well with this festive green. So, and I like the extra oomph. There's nothing wrong with a little extra oomph. And I'm just bringing a little of it into the point. At the tip of the leaf, I just like that little extra heat, I think. I love me some neons. Look at that. that zing. I love a little neon. It does not have to be a lot to make a big difference. And sometimes just the smallest little addition when it comes to color, to make color a bit more vibrant, is all that's needed. Now, in this case, it's just I'm using a tiny little bit just out at the tip of the leaf. I'm bringing a little bit back on the center vein, but not much. But look at that. It gives you that nice little punch of light in just the right spot. Gives you that little zing. I love it. Little bit of zing. So fun. So I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to add a little bit of outlining and put in the stems. And I think this is one of my favorite parts, because it kind of brings everything together. Yeah. Nice and dry. I'm going to grab my extra long detail liner. This is my 5/0. And I'm going to thin out a little of that festive green. I'm going to bring a little of that neon into it. I always like to brush mix this part, because pre-mixed colors just never seem to have the that I want. So I usually take whatever highlight color I've used, mix it with a little bit of warm white, not to drastically change the color, but to make it a little bit lighter and a little bit more opaque, because my highlight colors tend to be a little more transparent. So I'm going to thin that out. Just needs to be a little bit lighter. And this is the color that I'm going to use for my stems. So my liner brush, and I'm going to stroke in my stems to connect all those leaves. Comme ça. And I'm going to do the same thing to these big leaves up here. A little bit. And then I'm going to use that color to give a nice little outline to my leaves. It's not a thick line. It's not even a perfect line. It doesn't have to be exactly on the edge of the leaf. It's just enough to give the leaf a little bit of zing. There we go. And I also like this for this reason. Hi, Mace. Hi, baby. What are you doing? Yeah, snuff, snuff, snort, snort. Uh-oh.
Hey.
She's into mischief already. She hadn't even been here 10 seconds.
Knocking stuff over.
So, little vines, little tendrils. I like vines and tendrils. They work for me. Little vines and tendrils do not have to go in any particular direction. I like using them for filling up a little negative space. Hi. I'm getting puppy love today. She's been very affectionate today. A little overly affectionate today. What's up? Oh no. No, no, no. No eating brushes. Thank you. So, that's this spot. I'm going to bring a little bit of warm white in just to highlight in a few places because I can and it's my party. There we go. So I'm going to dry this really well so that I don't put my...
Excuse me.
And I'm going to do the same thing to these little holly leaves down here. Maze keeps bumping my elbow.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, Maze? I want your undivided attention. That's what she's doing. Maze is turning into a con artist.
Mm-hmm.
She cons us into going outside. Cons us into, oh, well, since we're going, we might as well take the ball. Or the gun. She likes the gun. You said ball. It's kind of like saying carrot or pepper. Maze loves green peppers, yellow peppers, red peppers. And I have a bag full of them in the freezer already prepped for cooking and whatnot. And if I say pepper, she wants to go get a pepper out of the freezer. She heads for the freezer. She's a very spoiled puppy dog. Aren't you? Yes.
Does she need lap time?
Not at 75 pounds, she doesn't. So now the fun stuff. So I'm going to make sure that this is really well and dry because we're going to remove some graphite lines. And I'm going to do that with my Factus black eraser, if I can find it. Oh, thank you. I know it hid behind something. I'm going to move those over there. So Factus Black, I love these for a couple of reasons. Not the least of which is that it takes graphite off really nicely. But also because it doesn't polish the background. It doesn't leave marks in the background. It doesn't smear things, which is a big one for me. I hate smeared graphite. I'm not a fan of graphite to start with, so so I can use it quite aggressively on my background without worrying about it damaging my surface. But it takes off all those graphite lines so neatly and so cleanly so that I don't have to worry about ugly lines anywhere.
What kind of peppers?
Just bell peppers. She loves them. Sweet bell peppers of any variety. So, there is our sign. And this is where we're going to come back to that little check stencil. Remember I said I didn't do the whole background first because I wanted to have a little more control over where this design went and how it was going to work with everything else. And this is how I'm going to do that. So again, I'm going to, just like we did on the teacup, I'm going to use the stencil on the diagonal. And I'm going to use a little bit of warm white. And the stencil brush needs to be almost dry. And we're going to go very lightly I'm going to bring the pattern down. We're not looking for opaque at all. And we're not even looking for complete. I just want the pattern to sort of be back there a little bit, but not really bright. So I'm going to bring a little bit in. And I'm going to bring a little over here. But again, I'm being very light with it. I kind of want these to fade a little. And I'm going to bring a little more over here. I kind of want these to have a broken appearance, if you know what I mean. So just a little to repeat that pattern. And just in that negative space. If you want to put some over here, by all means. I mean, you can put it wherever you want. But again, just be selective and very light with it. We don't need to have a ton of it on there. Just to carry that design element through. That's all we're looking for. So it fills up a little negative space with a little pattern, but it's very, very faint. We don't need to have it really dark. I really like that. In this, I did the same thing. I kept it very light and only filled up some of the negative space just to give things a little balance and to give it a little movement. Which brings us to one of my favorite parts. I love snowflakes. So I took a piece of frog tape, folded it back on itself, and I stuck my snowflakes down. And I'm going to use my stencil brush with a little bit of warm white. And this is how I paint my snowflakes. And I wanted to show you something, since I have you. Whenever you're working with MDF, one of the things you might notice from time to time is that the paint turns yellow. See how some of these are a different color, a little bit darker? This is just the smoke from the laser. And it's not that big a deal. But if you want to eliminate that bleed, take a little bit of multi-purpose sealer, add it to your base color. So we're going to paint this with white. I'm going to use a little bit of all-purpose sealer with my white paint, and it'll help block that. Help seal it in so that I'm not having to deal with it. And I added about 1:1 is the ratio, so half and half, equal amounts of warm white to all-purpose sealer. And then you're just going to use the stencil brush to add white to these snowflakes. Like so. Easy peasy. Now the kit for this comes with everything. It comes with the surface and the snowflakes. So even if you want just the surface and not the kit, it also comes with the snowflakes. So you don't have to go rummaging around for 1,000,001 things. So I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to put another coat of white on, because now they're sealed. And then while they're wet, we're going to sprinkle them with a little bit of glamour dust. Now, if you want really chunky glitter, go ahead and use that Galaxy varnish. The Galaxy, I love this stuff. This one here. It's got that heavy duty glitter in it. So if you're all about sparkle, knock yourself out. Use some of this. I love it. You can also use this, which is just the glamour dust. Sprinkle it on. I use a lot of that. And another product that I really like is this one. This is Starlight Varnish. It's also very similar to this one, except it has a much finer glitter in it. It's very pretty. So if you like the glitter, but you don't like the glitter everywhere, this is a really great alternative because it doesn't brush off eventually. But, so I'm going to make sure I got white. I'm going to use some of this. I'm all about this. I love this Galaxy varnish. I think this stuff is awesome. So I'm going to use that same stencil brush, and I'm just going to stamp on a little bit. Gobs of this stuff. I love it. Love snowflakes. Love sparklies. Gotta have a... So a little bit of Galaxy varnish. Pardon me. Love the glitter. Love it. And then, while it's still wet, I'm going to sparkle it with a little more glamour dust because I can and it's my party. So, look at that. Oh, so sparkly. Love it. So, I'm going to set this aside to dry. And we're going to talk about this. Now, I recommend using this wholeheartedly. I love this one. This is Decoart's matte spray. Love this stuff. It covers beautifully, and usually 1 or 2 coats is adequate. I seal everything simply because I really don't like fighting with it, and I use so many different things. Sometimes I use ink, sometimes I use paint pens, what have you. And you never know how things are going to react to being brushed with varnish. And I just prefer to avoid any issues altogether. And so I set everything with a little bit of this. And this is a trick that I learned years ago. I'm going to shoot this with 1 quick coat of this matte spray. I am going to do it right here, and I don't usually. 1 quick coat. Phew. Stinky stuff. And then, while this is still wet, I'm going to lightly sprinkle it with glamour dust. Like so. Just very lightly. And that gives it that sort of all over sparkle. It makes a mess, but it's so fun. I know, you end up with glitter everywhere, but oh well, what's a little glitter? But I love that. You see all that little sparkle in there? It's just so much fun. So we're going to grab a fugly brush. And I'm going to thin out a little bit of warm white because we need snow. And we're going to spatter with a little bit of snow, little white. Again, it's my party. And I'm going to rinse my brush. And then I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit of asphaltum. Just a little. I don't want a ton of it, but it needs it. And I focus it over here on that whipped cream and my cup. And then I'm going to do a little on my lettering because this is vintage and it needs to look like it's been around since time out of mind. And I'm going to dry this. And this is the fun part, is putting on these snowflakes. I love the snowflakes. So I'm going to make sure my snowflakes are dry before I tackle this. So I'm going to grab those. And I'm going to dry them. And I'm going to grab my favorite craft glue. Now on this one, I just arranged them to, again, fill up some of that negative space. I love snowflakes, and I love these dimensional snowflakes. I just think they make things so much more fun. I'm going to take a little of my favorite craft glue, and before I glue anything on, I like to do a dry run. I like to see where things are going to go. You know, I think we need one up there, one over here. I like the little one over here. I always like one to go off the edge a little. I just think that works. And then we need a little one over here. And I think a little one down in there. I think it looks kind of neat. Yeah, I like it. So I just want to avoid, filling up the hanger hole. So I think I'm happy with that. So I'll put a little bit of glue on the back of my snowflakes. Now this glue dries clear, so I am a big proponent when it comes to designing anything, especially something like this. Having the snowflake go off the edge just implies that they're falling. And you can do the same thing to this one. You can take it off the edge just a little bit. And there we have hot chocolate. Now to hang this, I love wire for this kind of thing. Could I show the glue brand? Absolutely. My good friend Kathy McAllister turned me on to this. It's awesome. And this one is called Art Glitter. It's a designer dries clear adhesive. This stuff is great. And my dear friend Patrick got me this little rig, which I've got to tell you, I wasn't sure what it was until he described it in his note. Freaking awesome. That way my glue bottle is always upside down and ready to go. I love it. It's a great little rig. I don't know where he got it, but I love it. And let me see, if you had to contour the letters on gilded signs, would you use another darker color? Generally, yes. Yes, I would. If the sign itself was gold, I would still use a darker color, just because I would want it to really pop. But yes, darker color. Renee is loading up the wheel.
It's loaded.
Mm-hmm.
So log into.
Oh.
Did it work? Yeah, it did.
So there you go. There is your hot chocolate.
The wheel of misfortune.
Not really. They're getting a really nice gift this week. Hardly a misfortune. Holy Moses, that wheel. 275 of you on there today. Yeah, it was minimal glitter. I behaved somewhat.
You were reserved.
Somewhat. Somewhat.
Are you ready?
I are ready. Spinning. So just to reiterate, we've got 3 great prizes. The first one is going to Diane Hendricks. Diane, I know I have your shipping information. The names are microscopic. But they are on there. They are absolutely on there. And FYI, there was a few more Just Becauses went out this past week. So keep your eyes on your mailboxes. Some of you are going to get a Just Because package. And our giveaways this week are courtesy of DecoArt, Tombow USA, and Renee and myself. And the next one goes to Judy Lowe. Judy Cormier Lowe. Judy, make sure you head over to my website, click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and send us a message with your shipping information so that we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible. And we have one more, and Maze has her face stuck through the cat door. She looks so pitiful.
You're really grumbling.
Yeah, she's not happy. And we have one more to give away.
Yeah, let's give it a shuffle first.
Okie dokie. Kelly Albright Cave. Congratulations, Kelly. Kelly, I'm pretty sure I have your shipping information too. Awesome. So, as always, thanks for joining us here every Saturday. We really do appreciate it. We have so much fun. I hope you enjoyed today's piece. Don't forget, we have a BOGO. It's only good until Monday. So if you need looking for a particular pattern, here's your chance. Coupon code is BOGO. Type that in. You'll get buy one, get one. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Everybody stay safe. Enjoy the last of what's looking like going to be the last of the really nice weather, because winter is coming. I, for one, cannot wait. The spiders will all go away.
Oh, they just hide.
Yep, they hide away from me. That's where we want. So, I'm just see if I missed any questions or anything. Real quick, thank you for the Christmassy class. You're welcome, Patrick. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Next Saturday, we're going to be doing a fun one. It's called Picking Flowers for Mama.
Nothing Halloweeny?
Nothing Halloweeny yet.
A Halloweeny.
No. No.
Like a hot dog.
It's a hot dog.
Put a witch's head on a hot dog.
Yeah, okay. A Halloweeny. Oh. Yes.
Renee autocorrect stinks.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys, that's it for us. Everybody have a great weekend. Mwah. We love you. Stay safe. Yeah.
And petteth thine pooch.
Petteth thine pooch. That's his new one for today.
Petteth thine pooch.
Have a good one.